In his Commemoration Day address last Thursday, the Rector, Lord Flowers, spoke of the future of Imperial College in view of the current cuts in education spending. He asked every graduate to covenant £20 a year for 5 years, which would give the college £250,000 at a time when more money needs to be spent to improve student accommodation and facilities. On Tuesday, I interviewed the Rector and asked him to explain the college's present financial position.
Well, our financial position I have been warning about for some years. It is still okay from many points of view because the UGC was able to be a little bit more generous last year than anybody had hoped, not only to us but to others. They fought a good battle with the government. But the chairman of the UGC is quite clear that hard times are certainly upon us, and
yes.
One of the things he has emphasized recently is that there is absolutely no capital building program for anybody anymore, and there is almost impossibility for providing for the maintenance of the buildings that we've got, which means that we shall gradually fall into decay.
Yes.
So that the financial situation is getting worse all the time, and universities are simply going to have to consider things that they do not like to have to consider. Rationalization is the word that is upon us,
yes.
and we don't like it, but we've got to learn to live with it. Now, as far as this college is concerned, apart from all those difficulties, we are being hit by two things. One is the fall in overseas student numbers, and we have lost about a quarter this
yes.
year, as we expected.
Do you think this decline will continue, or will the numbers
I think
increase?
it will get worse, because I think that in this country this year we have been lucky because many of the overseas governments and institutions which send their students to us have not got going fast enough to make alternative arrangements. We all expect that there will be a much greater drop in overseas student numbers next year than there has been this year. So that is one very difficult thing for us, and it affects our finances as well as what we can do academically. The second thing is that there is especially going to be no provision for halls of residence and sports facilities and things like that.
Yes.
And we in Imperial College, I believe, have greater need than most for these things, because we are in London and because we are in competition with places like Cambridge, which have magnificent facilities of that kind. And so we have got to find some way of helping ourselves to provide facilities of that kind if we are to continue to attract our share of the best students in the country.
Yes. Now, the covenant scheme that you proposed in your address, what areas is this intended to cover? Are you thinking of it to cover the accommodation, the sports, the recreation facilities?
Yes, I said to cover these things in particular.
Yes.
And I have made that appeal to all our graduates, essentially, but I made it on Commemoration Day to those who were graduating
yes.
that day, of course. I make it to all our graduates to support those things, halls of residence, sports facilities, and things of that sort. There are, of course, other things for which we shall need to raise money, and we are preparing, if you like, a portfolio of needs, and we are preparing ourselves to go out to try to meet those needs. We're going to have to raise money for many years to come on a scale which has not been commonplace in this country. We have been too used in this country, perhaps, to expecting the government to pay for everything that we do. And whether one thinks they should or not, they're clearly not going to in the future. And so we shall have to find out how to do it for ourselves.
Yes. Can I ask what response you've had since your appeal on Commemoration Day?
Oh, it's a little bit early yet. I can't tell you, I'm afraid. I hope it's a vigorous response. I hope people took me seriously. I intended to be taken very seriously indeed.
Yes. Right, now in your interview, in your speech, you spoke of improving and strengthening links with industries. Is there not a possibility of industries sponsoring, or at least making some contribution to courses which are particularly geared to the needs of industry, say the four-year engineering courses?
Yes, they have, of course, already been making contributions, but they're contributions in kind.
Yes.
I think people must realize that the four-year engineering courses, in the form in which we are devising them, are very industry intensive, and they are expensive from that point of view. It isn't that they cost us much more here on our premises, although they do cost something extra. But every time a student works with industry, it costs that industry something. So the extent to which you can ask industry to pay for our part of the proceeding as well as for the part that they are doing is a moot point. But of course it is something that we are very conscious of, and so far we've been working on an experimental scale, and if we, as I hope, go for a full-blown 4-year course approach to engineering education at Imperial College, then the question of industrial contribution will have to be raised in a specific form.
Yes. Well, Rector, as a final point, may I ask you how you see Imperial College in 5 years' time?
I see it as an even greater place than it is now, but we shall have to work together. We shall have to be prepared to say what our priorities really are and stick by them, and if it means jettisoning some other things or making them independent of the public purse, we shall have to be prepared to do that. Otherwise things will simply slide, and we cannot let that happen. I believe that we are a sufficiently enthusiastic community and a serious-minded community, I don't mean we don't have fun, that we shall rise above this and shall more than survive in 5 years' time.
Well, Flowers, thank you very much indeed.